Hi everybody, welcome to the fourth episode of Plural Spark Tank. We have a very special guest with us today. My name is Nikhil. I'm pleased to introduce Harish. Harish has two avatars. One has the head of design at Cred. He's also the founder, frontman, vocalist of the popular band Agam. I'm so happy to have you here, Harish.
Likewise, Nikhil. Nice to meet you.
Harish and I've met first Harish, I think probably 12 years ago, Harish, and I was just right out of college, my first job, and I think I'd come to one of the first earliest gigs of Agam, and and since then I've seen Harish's journey. I wanted to start with this first, kind of helping people know you, Harish Sivaramakrishnan, the person. You have all of these different things, interests from design, music. So if someone asked you, who's Harish, what's your identity like? Like, how do you define? Is it musician first, design next, or is father? Can you tell a little bit about?
Wow. First of all, Nikhil, thank you so much. It's always lovely to speak to you. And just the way you said, I have seen you grow and seen you do great stuff. So really excited to speak to you, and never thought what would I define myself as. Look, I've chanced upon most things that I have in my life. I don't think I premeditated any of that, including what I learned or what I went to study. I don't think I have a degree in engineering. I eventually did a whole bunch of engineering jobs and then moved to design. Somewhere in the middle, I have a small little musician thingy that kicked in. So I haven't. And of course, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a son. Look, I think I have, through the years, just thought, what do I want to be known as? It is just my own wanting to be that. I don't know if I have become that, or my pursuit is largely to be a person who tries to find art in everything, including things that are historically not considered art. I'm just trying to be that person who is seeking art in everything that I have an opportunity to involve, everything that I have an opportunity to engage myself in. And it has been satisfying for me to be in that pursuit, because it either opens out new ways of thinking, new ways of understanding things. So I've never answered this question, but if I ever were to put this in perspective for myself as to who do I want myself to be, I think I'm just very happy being an artist. I'm just being very happy being a person that is looking for art, finding art in everyday things and everything that I try to get myself engaged with. So yeah,
that's amazing.
That's how I think about it, yeah.
I'm pretty sure growing up was probably like most people, but also I'm sure that journey was also special with a few moments here and there that probably kindled this interest in art. Maybe when you were at school, or maybe when you were learning music and so on. So what was growing up like, Harish? Like, what was your family home look like? And do you remember any of these one or two special moments when you saw something beyond the day-to-day normal? When did art speak to you?
Sure. So I grew up in a very small village in Kerala, in district of Palakkad, like a really small place, a place called Shornur. That's where I was born. And I was raised there for the longest of time. And I was born. My dad was
till 12th. You were there.
Yeah, 10th. I was there until I finished my 12th, and then went to study engineering. But I was there for the most. Yeah. So, my dad was a retired banker. My mom was a school teacher, and my dad's side of the family had musicians through generations. And none of them really pursued it in a way that a musician should pursue. Unfortunately, most of them were like, my grandfather at least was a stellar musician himself. I've had the fortune of, he lived a very fruitful life. He lived until 98.
Wow.
And I've had an opportunity to live alongside him, happy to see the way he looked at art and pursued music in general. So yeah, I think...
Was he a vocalist too?
No, he was a harmonium player.
Okay.
And a very interesting human in himself, like, probably a quintessential artist who probably did not focus on anything else in his life through and through, probably just spent most of his life just pursuing being an artist, and to that end never really focused on even building an artist's career for himself. I think he just pretty much contained himself with just being an artist, and it happens. Like if you look at the wild generations and
Right.
2 generations behind, that's how musicians and artists rolled, and hence many of them did not make art that took it farther than it should have. But anyway, so music occurred to me because I grew up in a family which had a deep interest in music. I think at some point in time, I think my family identified that I might have some spark and some potential, which may or may not amount to something really big or not, but they just thought that the child has some potential,
Some
and
skills.
and also you understand, you would resonate with this, a typical lower middle class South Indian household.
Yeah.
There are a few things that they want their children to be that they couldn't be.
Yeah.
It specifically works that way for my mom because she
Yeah.
was not a musician. She didn't come from a
Musical
lineage of
background.
musicians or anything. So when I was born, I think some part of her would have wanted me to pursue something which kind of puts you into that map, as they say, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
a largely middle class existence in southern India is pretty turbulent, right? You're just kind of trying to make ends meet, and you generally have a largely a life's purpose that's largely defined as kind of doing what is required for the family. So I think somewhere that would have happened to my family, to see if the next generation of it could actually break that ceiling a little and maybe do something that will amount to. But that's how I was probably put into music. I did not, Nikhil, think much about my own art. Like most of the young people, I think I learned it because I was told to.
Right.
And I practiced it also because I was asked to practice. And you do this stuff, right? You have competitions and you have the school events and
Right.
annual days and
I remember
and
you
stuff.
were in one of the first seasons of Super Singer.
Yeah,
where
but that's a
everyone was-
lot later in life.
Lot
That's-
later in
Yeah,
life.
that's a lot later. But that was when I was probably 24,
24.
25.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know, so when I was probably 11, 12, 13, look, there's no real motivation to
Got it.
pursue art. Like, you know, so it's just one of the things that you do. I think I did that. See, I think the inflection typically comes when you leave home.
Right.
I think I left home when I was 17. I went to study engineering. That's where you meet people,
Yeah.
people different from you, people with different listening profiles,
Right.
different vantages towards art.
Yeah.
And engineering colleges, funnily, nurtures musicians like no other schools can. I've seen most musicians come out of engineering colleges primarily because many of them end up in engineering because they didn't know what to do better.
No, I want to tell
yeah.
this to the audience. A lot of people know that BITS Pilani has actually produced a lot of entrepreneurs. People keep telling, you know, this is the BITS alum and so
Yep,
on.
yep.
But just for those who don't know, Agam is a full-blown BITS alum. This is where you met your bandmates.
Yeah, BITS Pilani generally produced more people who did stuff elsewhere, than engineering itself. And it's changing right now, but at least at the time that I was in.
Right.
So long story short, I think that is my inflection point. I met people. I met folks. And also you do understand, like, you know, at the risk of sounding like, you also understand that your music is a fair potential game to get attention.
Right.
Like, you know, that is how you get popular. That's how you get, like, you know, to be in spaces where cool people hang out. So all those things occur to you when you're a teenager, when you're slightly growing up. And
Right.
so naturally you think, oh, this is a good segue for you to find a place for yourself.
Right.
Especially when you are not really bringing the ceiling down with your grades. You naturally focus your attention towards something that you're naturally better, or you have a place to occupy. I would think going to engineering, going to BITS Pilani, meeting the people that I met, some of them became my band members, like
Right.
you said, and the ones that didn't become also had a profound impact on me. So that is probably, and probably art has stayed on with me ever since I started learning music, but
that's when you kind of rediscovered
you
it.
sort of understand that there's more that you can do with your art, and there is more purpose that you can drive with it. And sometimes the purpose is pretty fragile, like I mentioned. Like, you know, it's about getting attention.
Yeah.
It is about being popular.
Yeah.
It is about being that person that everybody looks up to, being that person who gets a stage. And so these are very shallow sort of pursuits, not
Right.
really intrinsically very true to why an artist should pursue art. That's how I also started, but several years have hence passed, and maybe I look at art very differently right now.
That's amazing. You know, you were talking about, like, you said that things have happened to you and you've kind of been in a flow. I wanted to ask you this because it's, you know, sometimes there are so many people that come into your life and they do one small thing, or they say one small thing, or they do one small gesture, which they don't realize, but ends up having a big impact in your life, the way it turns out, or some small thing. And I think I read recently you were talking about a few people like that, at Adobe, who were like that for you.
Yep.
If you look back at this journey, and the reason I want to explore this is sometimes it's very trivial, those very small things, but they end up having a profound impact in one's life. So I just wanted to ask you, are there like one or two people that come to your mind when I said this?
Oh, sure, more than that actually, but at least there are few people that I will, at every given chance like this, to acknowledge them and their contribution to my growth in my life and whatever little I could do through these years. It's funny, so I was in chemical engineering stream, doing pretty badly. Primarily because it was not something that I understood deeply when I took it up. I didn't know what the subject is and what is it that you have to learn. The running joke is most of the chemical engineers that you meet in IT industry can't really tell you the first law of thermodynamics correctly.
Sure, I'm sure.
So that's a common joke about a chemical engineer, because most of these guys didn't know what it. Some of them thought it was chemistry. Some of them thought it was about chemicals. It's neither. It's actually a very strong physics-oriented subject. So long story short, I remember walking to two people like in BITS Pilani, two very important people in my life. One is Professor Rahul Banerjee. He doesn't work at BITS anymore, but he is still a professor of computer science. The other person is Professor B.R. Natarajan. He was a professor in chemical engineering. These two people are important because the second one, Professor B.R. Natarajan, walked up to me and said, "Child, you're not gonna do chemical engineering well. It's not gonna work out for you." So he just said, "Why don't you go and meet Professor Rahul Banerjee?" I still remember one of the answer papers sheets, last sheet was empty. He wrote in like, "Hey Rahul, meet this guy," because he's a computer science prof. I don't think he will meet a 5.6 GPA chemical engineering guy. I mean, what is he doing in computer science department anyway? So I went there and I said, like, look, I just told that I like computers. I don't know why I said that, because I did like computers, and I had.
Did you have one while growing up?
No, I didn't.
So this is an important thing.
I didn't.
Because a lot of kids, there are lots of stories of people who are in tech whose story goes back to say, when I was a kid, my father bought me a computer, I started dabbling with it. But there are also a bunch of people who never had this.
If my father wanted to buy a computer also, the computers did not exist. I'm that archaic in that sense. So I think, no. So look, I think I had learned to create layouts in HTML.
Got it.
It seemed like a very esoteric skill back in the day.
This was in engineering in the college.
In engineering, this is something which I learned very instinctively because I just chanced upon something, and I think I learned some basic tags and started doing layouts and what. So my offer to Professor Rahul Banerjee was that I'll convert course material to web pages.
Oh, interesting.
Nobody could offer that at that point in time, and I think I was very enterprising in saying that because I didn't know
how to make
much computer science otherwise. I think probably did C programming, which I was decent at. But if I offered him I can program in C, I don't think he would have given me an internship or given me a. So I said I can convert your course material to web pages, and that was the time this whole web page thingy was taking off. Like a professor could share a website and you can click, and this was the time like websites would have your picture on the left hand side. With some cursive text saying who you are and your degree, and then a whole. So I started doing that, and that is where I think my opening to tech sort of came in, and that led me to master that better. I started programming in PHP. Subsequently started programming in Java, subsequently started programming in Flash ActionScript. Many people wouldn't even know what that is. It's that old, but Flash.
Maybe around that time at school, I was using Flash and it was building like an election, school election software and stuff like that.
It was way ahead of its time, so to speak, in terms of what you could do with that. But let me not go rhetorical about that. That one moment, one Professor B.R. Natarajan, who is a professor in chemical engineering, telling me, "Don't worry, I will put you in touch with a computer science prof. Why don't you go and make your life by speaking to that guy with what little you know?" It's a huge, and I would remember Professor Nattu for what a professor really should be. a professor should not be about pointing my inability to become a good chemical engineer. Instead, he actually took that opportunity to find me a way where I could actually do better. I think that's what teachers should ideally do. You don't meet many like that. And Professor Natarajan probably will hear this because he's very active on Facebook, and he's still and it's funny. I would tell you this anecdote. So he would ask me when I was sitting in the lab doing this conversion work. He will say, "Are you coming?" Because it would be his period,
right,
which I am a student of.
Right.
So he will ask me. He'll ask me in Tamil, "Variya?" He will ask, "Are you coming?" Then I said, "No, I'm busy doing this."
Code.
He said, "It's okay." Look, these two people are very important in my life.
Right.
Two reasons. One is because of my expertise in actually writing action scripts. Is how I chanced upon my job at Macromedia, which is what led me to go and join Adobe, where I spent almost a decade building stuff.
Building UI frameworks.
Yeah, and look, everything that I learned in college was because this one opportunity door opened.
Right.
And sometimes you meet people, like in this particular case. And of course, there are more people that came in, Nikhil. This would probably be a 40-minute talk to just acknowledge people that helped. And I'm sure you will have that many
Absolutely.
or more. I think we all can speak thanking people that put you in the map. But these two people I mentioned primarily because when you are too many years into the industry, you have recency bias about people that helped you in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and you would tend to acknowledge them a lot more often because that's how we humans are. But then rewinding back probably 25 years and thinking if these two people did not really exist and probably did not allow me to do what I got to do, maybe this podcast would have had a different person.
Makes sense.
And I wouldn't be sitting here. So that gratitude is important, which is why I want to name them. Yeah.
We're going to come back to the musician side of Harish, and probably, for all of you who's watching, we'll do a small jam at the end of this.
I'm excited.
But now that, we came to your career at Adobe, you've been at Adobe, you were at FreeCharge, Myntra, Google, now Cred, which is a large part of your identity being, in the design world. I was hoping to learn from you today on a few mental models of how you think about design. So I've heard from a few people who worked with you or were in the same organizations about your thinking around design systems, and that being one of the earliest proponent of being systems rather than just going about designing things. And there are lots of founders and product managers, and I'm sure designers thinking. And there's obviously a lot of things said and unsaid about Cred's design and so on. But I just wanted to kind of take a step back and and look at you as the prof for today around design, and like if you could explain this to us like a 5-year-old, what does a design system look like, and then how are designs derived out of this? If you can give us some mental models or probably like an architectural view of what comes first and then how do you layer and build on it, or whatever is your process.
Sure.
Would love to know.
Sure.
And explore that for the next few minutes.
Sure. I'll try to not veer too far because it's also a subject that I deeply introspect myself, and sometimes I do get foggy about it, not because I want to get foggy about it, but it's also something that is very hard to very objectively
define.
Put. And every time I get asked this question, I'm attempting my way to get less divergent and more focused.
Right.
So I think I'm getting better. I think I'll make an attempt again today. Don't know if it will still be as lucid as a 5-year-old sort of level, but I'm going to try. I'm just going to try. So look, first thing that I acknowledge is I don't come from a formal design education. We already spoke about it. I come from more of an engineer's cred as a person, and most of my design was learned because I worked with designers as customers. So I worked at Adobe for almost 9.5 years, and the products I built were all used by designers.
Right.
So most of my interaction and generally my own success in being an engineer building stuff was largely a function of the success that the designers derived out of what I created for them. So if I'm building a feature for Flash or Flex or Photoshop or Illustrator, no matter what you work on, these are eventually going to be consumed by designers, and designers' success in using that feature broadly defines whether you got it right or whether that is. I was fortunate, Nikhil, to have great mentors, several of them to name, but phenomenal mentors at Adobe. And I was fortunate to speak to designers a lot.
Right.
From a ally's vantage.
Right.
Not as a practitioner, but as an ally. And Nikhil, I think it is something that a lot of people are unfortunately not getting an opportunity to.
Right.
How do you become an ally for a designer?
Right.
First, you become an ally for a designer, understand how designers think, and then you complement them with your ability as an engineer, as a product manager, as an analyst, as a CEO. I do not know, it can stretch to any level.
Yeah.
So my mental model is, being a designer is to start by saying that I'm not a designer myself. So I'm going to use a craft, which I don't directly practice, to produce outcomes for people. So my second major acknowledgement is, I have felt a deep connect to solving for humans.
Right.
When I say humans, it's people, it's you, it's me, it's a bunch of people here, it's my daughter, it's my mom, and just when you speak humans, I don't know, unfortunately, through and through my time as a designer trying to work in the industry, I have heard people repeatedly tell me that humans have problems.
Right.
And humans' problems need solutions. It resonates really well with a left-brained, objective engineer's conscience, because engineers like problems.
Right.
Engineers like to look at problems and solve them.
Right.
Unfortunately for me, maybe the people I met at Adobe, maybe the mental model that I have, I dislike looking at life as problems. See, I have always felt that.
Is that also because of the art side of you?
I will come to that potentially, and I'm now probably disambiguating that for myself. Maybe it is because of my art persona, maybe not. I do not know, but I'll at least say this much: when I started designing or working with designers as a job, one thing that I clearly understood was that almost every problem that we have today is actually a creation of a human. And you create problems and we fix them. It's a loop. So if we didn't create them, the problems don't exist.
Right.
And the human progresses entirely because we have aspirations.
Right.
And then they present to you as problems, and somebody picks up that problem and fixes with an aspiration, and then something else comes, and that's how. But unfortunately, it has gotten too abstracted out to problem solving. So
Makes
my
sense.
first mental model is design is not a problem solving function.
Interesting.
It shouldn't be. If you are actually teaching designers that you are actually here to solve problems, you're starting very wrong.
Would you frame that, then rephrase it as creation? Like what's...
Design has to be a creation pursuit only.
Got it.
So which is why I think Ramon, I don't know if it's Ramon or Kevin Hoyt, I don't remember. One of these people told me create, don't fix.
Got it.
So this stuck to me when I was 25. Like somebody told me, Harish, create, do not fix. And it stuck to me in multiple ways, and I still follow that. I think I do not like to fix. Because fixing is innately probable. I'll come to that in a bit. Let me just try to articulate the question that you asked. I don't want to digress. I'm making conscious mental models to not digress. So the second point that I want to mention is, for me, designing is not a problem-solving pursuit. It's a creation pursuit.
Makes sense.
So when it is a creation pursuit, one good thing happens to you in your mind. You will start looking at the individual you're creating for and not for his problem or her problem.
Got it.
So when you are actually solving for somebody's problem, a ton of emotion gets removed.
Right.
When you're solving for a human being, a ton of emotion comes back in.
Right.
Like, when your daughter has a painful cough,
Right.
think about it. You're not really fixing for her pain in the cough. You're fixing for your daughter.
Yeah.
Once the pain is gone, she's going to smile.
Yeah.
She's probably going to run a little. And when you see her running a little, you feel that, okay, you've solved a problem. Innately, you didn't solve a problem, right? You actually made a person do something that he or she was otherwise not able to do. Unfortunately for me, Nikhil, when I look at digital product design in across the world, that gets it to a very surgeon's persona. Oh, there's a problem, and we need to address that problem. Humans, nobody wants solutions to problems. People just want to feel good. People want to feel happy about their achievements. People want to be told that, hey, you did well. Hey, you tried. Hey, this moment, even when you did not have the best of outcome, I am still very proud of you. This is what you want to hear. When we start up, we'll make a ton of money, we'll become, but you still, as a founder, would want to be told that, hey, you created value.
Right.
You created something beautiful. You created something that led to so much.
Yeah.
But that's what design should be about. So what's my second thing is, I dislike people who look at design as a problem solving.
Got it.
The third one is, I dislike people who dislike subjectivity. I'm a very subjective human being. I think everything in life is subjective.
And you famously said no ROI or metrics on. Not a big fan of metrics.
I am a fan of metrics. I am not a fan of metrics without nuance.
Nuance.
So Kunal Shah has a very famous line. He keeps telling, "Operation successful, patient dead." So he keeps saying this in a lot of instances, and we laugh immediately after he says that. So it's quirkily true.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, did you fix for a faulty heart? Yes. But is the person alive? No, I punctured the lungs. Yeah. So, it's funny. So, look, for me, I am a fan of metrics.
You were saying about subjectivity.
So, metrics are important, and objectively being able to measure something is important. So, we'll all come to them. Hopefully, there are other opportunities for me to speak about them. So, let me just again narrow this down. For me, fear of subjectivity results in a lot of unfortunate patternization. Because people will wake up and say beauty is subjective.
Right.
The moment you say that, you're finished.
Yeah.
Beauty is not subjective. Then people will say taste is subjective. You're finished. You will not be able to build anything meaningful the moment you have started. The third one, the worst one, Nikhil, your customer doesn't care.
Right.
I've heard this from product managers through and through my life. Actually, your customer doesn't care. I mean, how are you going to build anything for somebody that doesn't care?
Yeah.
The first point in life is everybody cares. Try crossing the road and try tripping and falling. I'll show you 5 people running up to you. They don't know you. And they will fix for you. Like, people don't care in situations where the downside for themselves in caring is very high. You understand what I'm trying to say? Like, if me caring for you will result in me getting run over by a bus, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
That's because that's how we are as humans. Like, selfishness takes over. But 9 out of 10 situations are not like that.
You're generally saying like universe is generally benevolent in that.
Generally, if you actually appealed to the immeasurable,
right,
you'll be very successful.
Right.
If you are actively appealing to the measurable, you will die optimizing.
Right.
Because there is no end. Sometimes you just have to create something that brings a smile on somebody's face.
Right.
That's all you do. So for me, which I apply in my design a lot. See, for me, I like the warm and fuzzy.
Right.
I like the beautiful. I like those moments that don't have meaning.
Right.
Like, I dislike being quantified on. See, I say this to my team a lot, Nikhil. I live by a principle which is called everything is necessary.
Everything is necessary.
Everything is necessary. Everything in this world is absolutely necessary. You know why we don't have them? Because constraints prevent us from having them. If I asked anybody in the room or in the Zoom, if you could buy a Rolls Royce today, assuming you are into cars, are you going to say it's unnecessary?
No.
You wouldn't say you'll have it. But why do you don't buy it? You don't have the money. Correct. So the point is, assuming things are not necessary. I mean, so in Hindi, a lot of people come and tell me, "Iski kya zarurat hai?" My point is, like, stop. Everything is necessary. But you may not have them because you have constraints.
Right.
So the last model in design for me, in design thinking, in systems thinking is, I don't design basis constraints. I design unconstrained.
Right.
And I apply constraints onto it because I have to.
Right.
With the hope that there will be one day in my life when each of these constraints will start vanishing. When those constraints start vanishing, you actually built what you wanted.
Right.
Like, you always want a big house.
Right.
But you start small not because you think big house is wasteful.
Right.
It's a lie.
Right.
You want a big house.
Right.
You built a small house only because you couldn't build a big house. So at least build it big, and then you understand, at least make your model big.
Yeah.
And then this is like, and the last thing I'll say, like, this is why I like the automobile industry a lot. You always would see that their concept cars,
right,
which are their MVPs by the way, which is their first version, will be insanely impractical compared to the car that they ship. When it comes to tech industry, you are the opposite. You will ship a chassis and say, I'm going to measure it and see if this car. No, you need to produce a fully baked, polished, beautiful object there. That's your product.
That's interesting. You're basically saying, we basically ship chassis as an MVP. We've stuck on to this, and then
several times, almost every time, you forget. People just look at a car as an engine,
right,
and a chassis, and a seat, and a steering, and an accelerator pedal, and a gear stick. No, it's wow. The first thing you'll see is what color is that car,
right,
and how does the car open? Does it look nice?
Right.
Will it put me at a good place when I drive this car? Do I look fashionable? Which is why I am an extremely form-first person.
Right.
Without form, function is worthless.
Got it.
So the last thing I will say about my design is there is a very important nuance which I stick to every day, very passionately, which is why I speak about it like this. There's a very interesting aspect about life that we all understand, which is being alive
Yeah.
and living.
Right.
If you took a deep breath and asked you, are they the same thing? You'll be surprised they're not the same thing.
Correct.
Because being alive is correct pulse,
Yeah.
120 by 80 BP, under 90 blood sugar,
All the measurables.
equal breathing. If you are meeting all of that, you are alive.
Correct.
That's called function.
Right.
Living, on the other hand, is wearing good clothes,
Right.
going out and partying, singing songs, walking in the rain, running when you want to, stopping when you want to, climbing up mountains. None of these are objectively quantifiable. That is what is called living. For
Right.
me, design is living. And to
Interesting.
be living, you have to be alive.
Right.
So that function for me is just the base vectors of being alive.
It's not either or, it's and. In some sense,
it is
right?
not
So-
either or, it is and secondly, without living,
Right.
being alive is worthless.
Correct.
Correct.
Makes
So
sense.
you in a coma, lying in a hospital bed is a terrible vegetative state. But is your function fine? Yeah, your function is fine. You're not dead. You're
Right.
clinically alive. Many products are just clinically alive.
Right.
That is the problem with products, because they are just built for function. I build for form.
Interesting.
It should be beautiful first. You touch it, you should feel an emotion, and to the extent that it should look wasteful.
Right.
Because great things in life generally look wasteful.
Right.
How many shoes do you have?
Right.
You have 10 shoes. Do you need 10 shoes? Do you wear them all together? No. But do you like 10 shoes? Yes. Otherwise, you just have to buy one pair of floaters. No. I hate this utilitarian view to design. Solve for the basic purpose. Solving for the basic purpose has resulted in extremely boring shit.
So in some sense, you're like, if I can kind of like put this together, you're saying like, don't design for constraints, but design for abundance in some
Design
sense.
for abundance, design for joy, design beyond purpose. And Nikhil, I'll ask you a question. You're an entrepreneur. You built a successful business, and you've been in the industry for long enough. And I'm sure you would agree with me. Your product is successful when people value it beyond the value that you provide.
Correct.
Is that a fair thing to say?
100%.
You like Apple not because you can actually make phone calls on an iPhone.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been a high gross margin business if that was the purpose of iPhone. You like iPhone because it's an iPhone.
Right.
There's association, there is brand, there is a signaling, there is a value, there is love for the brand. Like, if you build a product which is just about does what it promises correctly,
Yeah.
you will not have a successful product. I really want to say that to young designers. Don't fix for utility. Utility will take care of itself.
Right.
Like, don't build a phone that can't make a phone call. That's stupid, right?
Yeah.
You come and tell me, but what is the point in building a phone that doesn't make a phone call? Not even a phone, it's a soapbox.
Absolutely.
So that argument is actually worthless.
Yeah.
Like, your phone should make phone
Don't
calls.
design a car that can't go.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
100
coming back and
kilometers.
tell me, like, have you focused on whether this car will run? I'm like, yeah, sure, it's not a car otherwise. but why are you using that argument to me just because I am polishing the bumper?
Yeah.
When I'm polishing the bumper, don't come and tell me, have you checked the engine?
Yeah.
Somebody has to check the engine. But I have to polish the bumper. You understand, right? Checking the engine is not an excuse to not polish the bumper.
Makes sense. Harish, so, when you have a philosophy like this, I'm sure, designers who've been either in other startups or who've come out of school or so on, this is some sort of like cognitive dissonance for people who probably join Cred or during their interviews and so on. So I'm curious, like, how do you bring this, this philosophy to life? Like, the reason I'm asking is, generally, teams are organized by function and not by form. Like, you have a user research team, you have a UI team, you have like UI engineering, then there is visual design, then there's motion design, and so on and so forth. So when we are organized by function, how does it all lead up to form? Is it are you the binding factor, or is there something that you've done by design that allows this to? So for example, let's say I'm an entrepreneur, I love this idea, and if I'm watching this, what practical tips can you give in terms of like how to organize ourselves to design from form and not for function?
Sure. First of all, Nikhil, I think we should design for both form and function.
Sure.
I went very passionately berserk because I generally told by people that design for function, if you have time, design for form.
Fair enough.
So I hear that a lot, like form trails function. No, form doesn't trail function. Form and function are together.
Right.
You have no function if there is no form.
Right.
So that is all I'm trying to say. Like, if it is not nicely polished, it's not good function.
Right.
So I'm only saying that you have to say that you have built good function only if you have good form.
Fair
you
enough.
can't quite say I will focus on form later, let me focus on function. Is somebody who has a very scant understanding of design
Fair
or
enough.
humans.
Fair
So
enough.
that's what I'm trying to say.
Fair
So to your question, I'm no org design expert. And secondly, I have been fortunate through my career to work with founders or leaders.
And different types of works. Like you've seen all the way from Adobe, Myntra, Freecharge,
very different companies,
Google,
very different companies with very different attitude and very different, philosophies to
Right.
design, which is why I have been more prosperous in some companies and very less prosperous in some companies. If you actually look at my LinkedIn, it was also a reflection of how long was I in a particular company. It's a very good reflection of whether it worked for me or it did not work for me.
Yeah.
So at least for the sake of this discussion, I will take up the places where I have worked for longer or I have had a better ability to thrive.
Right.
And I have to caveat this by saying what works for me may or may not or would never work for everybody. So please, just the way, one thing I'll say, just the way I hold very passionately to my belief system, it is fine if you held on to yours. And they needn't be the same. So I just really want to say that before I answer this question. So for me, cred, or for that matter, any other, I don't even want to narrow it to cred. I just want to take it as a product that I'm building. And if I'm hiring for that, for me, what you're creating is your product. The line of businesses, the basically when you're building a house, right? Everybody's building that house. There's a mason, there's a carpenter, there's a plumber, there's an electrician, there's an architect, and there's the owner.
Right.
And then there is also the people who will actually run the house after the architect hands it over to you.
Right.
There's so many people involved in making the house look and work like a house. But unless you have a perception of a house,
right,
and it is very, very hard. So for me, when I hire for design, I want people to have the advantage.
Right.
Like you're building something which has got a larger purpose. It is a larger entity, and your role in building the larger entity will be fluctuating, will be sinusoidal. There will be cycles where your contribution is of the highest value,
right,
and there is some point in time your contribution is probably troughing, then it's again peaking, then it is troughing, but the point is it's your home.
Is that vantage point more like an architect's vantage point?
Mine?
Yours, or like when you
somebody
when you
who's building, I could be anything, somebody just who is building.
Got it.
Like if you're taking a house as an
different
example,
vantage
I'm a person that is building that house. Like my skill might be that of a mason.
Makes sense.
But then I don't want mason to have a mason's vantage.
Makes sense.
A mason should still have the person who's building the house's vantage, where he applies his masonry.
Got it.
Rather than saying I'm a mason, I'm just going to do masonry.
Like
that's the difference. Like so if you have a very functional view,
right,
then you are at. So the second thing I generally do, and I have been very fortunate to be successful at this, is I don't hire for requirements.
Got it.
For me, it has never worked. I hire for my company. Requirements may come in truckloads in one quarter, and requirements are almost nil in another quarter when somebody else is consolidating. Let's say, for example, you're building a large platform. You're not going to do an app update for 3 months.
Right.
Designers don't do much. Just giving you an example.
Fair enough.
So I can't be hiring for, let's say, an X feature, because that X feature is very important. The problem with, again, this has been my belief. Whenever I had been asked to hire people for requirements, you get a very different cohort of people. I'm nothing against that cohort of people. It will work for a lot of companies. That cohort of people are driven by the problem,
right,
and not driven by the vision.
Got it.
Means when that problem ceases to exist, they're looking for something else.
Right.
It is okay. It's a completely fair position to have, because look, it is almost like saying, look, I am a plumber which fixes very complex leaks.
Yeah, and that person's useful only when a leak.
No, he is fantastic to fix leaks.
Yeah.
But you can't hire him.
Right.
Where you're actually building an art gallery.
Yeah.
Because he'll fix the leak, he will say somebody else has to come and mop the floor.
Right.
He will say somebody else has to come and clean up the place. He will not say, I don't know the fitting.
Yeah.
Whatever fitting you give me, I'll put it. But on the other hand, somebody who deeply cares about the fitting, he will say, I'll buy the right tap.
Right.
I will make sure that I fix it in a way that nothing is externally visible.
Right.
I'll make sure that when you open it is not screeching. I'll make sure that after I leave, I'm removing all the foot marks. I hire people like that.
Nice.
Because it is not important that somebody fixed a leak, because you'll find dime a dozen people who can fix leaks. But a person that deeply cares.
Right.
This is the same with maintenance. If you think the guy who was actually maintaining Leela Palace,
right,
has to be more passionate than the guy who built it.
Makes sense.
Because the guy who built it actually built it and put all those photos and put all the furniture, he left.
Yeah.
But there's a guy who is coming in every day, keeping it, making sure that everything is aligned, which is why the passion to see something run in its best possible way is a trait that I look for. If you find a person with that trait, hire that person. And in terms of structure, look, I have only designers in my team.
What do they do? What do they do every day?
See, I have people with great.
Do they come with like great ideas and tell Harish?
No, they do everything like any other company. Like, some days they just design mocks. Some days just they are doing user testing. Some days they are just making phone calls to customers. Some days they are accompanying researchers. But there's only one subtle difference. They actually believe that they are creating something meaningful. They're actually building an app which has got a goal to be something. And that goal, fortunately for me, because I have a chance to work, this is my second time with Kunal, and without acknowledging him, it's hard to speak, at least in my current job. Kunal is a great visionary entrepreneur to work with, and he really wants to create a product that actually lasts. And I think when we started in 2017 November, it was not there. We just said, how do we build something which will make people feel emotional when they delete it?
Right.
It is that photograph on your phone. It is not a very meaningful photograph. But somehow when you go to that, some random unquantifiable emotion hits you.
Correct.
And tells you that, oh, I can't delete this.
Yeah.
Once you've created something like that, you're one. Then nobody will ask, this photo ka kya fayda hai? Nobody's going to ask that.
Right.
Like, it's an ugly picture of yours. You'll never post it on Facebook. You'll not post it on Instagram. You're not going to Snapchat it. But you look at it, damn, I really can't take this off. So we wanted to create a brand. We wanted to create a product like that. And to that, we needed people with this persona to come in. So I have fortunately gotten a chance to hire and then hire and then hire as a referral loop of people who are in the team that I am currently being fortunate to work with for a journey, for a vision, for a goal, as opposed to a problem.
To me, it sounds like Cred's internal dashboard is not about active users, but active feelings in some sense.
See, look, that's the thing, no? So you have to still look at active users. You have to look at session minutes. You have to look at crashes. See, that is the beauty, Nikhil. So you are not, see, when I say this, they don't come at the cost of this. Unfortunately, all I'm saying is that is all that is being looked at in a lot of places.
Fair enough.
That's all I'm trying to say. Why am I speaking about the other part? That is assuming that the other one is in a
the basic foundation.
The foundation is in a stable place. See, nobody can run a company which is trying to run an active business, which needs to make money at some point in time, by just being warm and fuzzy about life.
Right.
So it is not your college art gallery where people just come and out. I'm not building that. I'm building a tangible business that needs to make sense in business terms. So let me be very. All I'm saying is I don't operate on the absolutes of objectivity on this. I operate on significantly subjective realms.
Right.
And we'll come to that. I don't want to go deeper into this. And there are in the design team. Since you asked what is the structure of mind, it's a bunch of people with a creative mindset. A bunch of people have deep respect for other functions. The one thing which I look for is I don't hire designers who have no respect for engineers.
Right.
Or no respect for backend engineers. Right. Or no respect for analysts. Right. Or no respect for, let's say, DevOps people. Or just say I'm the designer, I just make mocks and everybody else is stupid. Right. So you can't really operate like that. So you need to hire people who are deeply respectful, because I always tell my team this, if you didn't have a great front-end team, at best what you will have is dribble shots. So if you wake up in the morning and look at the mirror and say that, do you want to be a guy with a lot of dribble shots, or do you want to be a guy whose vision was taken to a real app by a bunch of people who have abilities that you do not have?
Right.
Naturally, you'll become respectful.
Right.
You look at the other people's craft and other people's work with that respect. That's all I'm trying to do.
So it's a great point that you made, right? So, for a lot of people, what you see and what you get, there's this subtle difference, right? How much of influence do you have on hiring the right set of people on front-end engineering? Because I want to know this relationship, because it's almost like this is to create something, it's like you're almost creating like an NBA A team MVP, 5 people. There's a dribbler, there's someone who's defending, there's someone at center.
Good analogy.
So all of these guys have to pass the balls, at the ball the right way, and and shoot and win the game, right? What's kind of like this relationship between product managers and engineering been for you? Because one practical problem that always happens is from what you see to what you get, and there is this difference, right? And you know, like I know that Swami is a good friend. He's your bandmate. He's this thing is. Does this happen at a leadership level? Does this happen? Is there a unset contract that what you see and what because by the time you ship, there's always some loss that goes in, right? So how do you guys deal with that?
Sure, I think this was fixed from day zero at Cred, at least, and I have to confess that's not the case with all of other companies I worked in. So because Cred I came in first. Of course you have this day zero guys advantage, and also clearly Swami is a friend, and I deeply respect Swami's craft as an engineering leader, and he has created a stellar engineering practice for our company. So with that acknowledgement, I think, look, the problem begins when you actually think some things are fungible or some things are dispensable. So on day zero of Cred, I think we said what you see is what you get is not dispensable. The day you say that, like converting a mock to absolute pixel perfection is a goal. So the moment you say it is a goal, then there is no discussion, right? Or is it? So it is not like let us try to be pixel perfect. You're already diluted it. Right. So we don't speak that language. I mean, being pixel perfect is a goal.
Right.
It's a KPI. It's an ask. Who's the front-end engineer? Front-end engineer is not somebody who abstractly puts together a design.
Right.
Then you're not a front-end engineer. You're at best some kind of a man in the middle.
Right.
Like somebody who knows to write some quick scripts to make sure a button is working.
Someone who's getting tasks.
Yeah, like you are. See, basically, there are electricians that wire and electricians that finish.
Right.
A guy who is wiring is not a full electrician. Like the guy who is wiring will also plug two wires into a socket and say, bulb is getting lit. Does that mean that the guy who just wired the home is the electrician of your home?
Right.
An electrician is the one who actually eventually puts the switches, checks it, and make sure that the right switches are connected. So I have a great analogy that that was told to me, which is like, good electricians make lights work. Great electricians make switchboards that does not require you to look at.
Interesting.
Like, have you seen, if you go to US, the switchboards are linear.
Yeah.
The switches will work in the order they are wired.
Right.
You will never see that in India. The fan switch will be here, light switch will be there. That's because we don't have appreciation to craft. A good crafty electrician will wire the switchboard in a way that you could tuck, 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 it will get lit in that order.
Interesting.
See, now how do you teach this?
Right.
It's a personality trait.
Right.
Like, I mean, you could also say all switches are working. That is the form function argument. A guy who really understands products will not build a switchboard that just works. So, our front-end engineers are people who actually believe what he has put up on a Figma is not a designer's vision. That is what the customer should see.
Right.
That's when it starts making sense. And the customer deserves to see it.
Right.
Whether the customer will like it, whether he will appreciate it, whether it is the right thing for the customer, very different problem.
Right.
Entirely different problem. But knowing that this is what the customer should see and translating that, and we have been fortunate and
great
extremely
talent
fortunate
coming
to have
in.
Attracted people who could do that.
I want to just put all of this into place with a couple of examples of Cred itself. There were two things that I thought I'll touch upon. So one was, you were talking recently about designing experiences on Cred for completely orthogonal businesses. You have a commerce business, you have a financial services business, you have bill payments, and I'm sure much more is coming, Cred escapes. And I also found this very fascinating when I saw Cred escapes, the whole, I don't think I've seen a holiday package being ever shown in this, right from the music, from the video, to the scrolling experience, and then how there is a system. I couldn't help notice, but there's a system behind it. But there is an experience for Kerala, there's an experience for Himachal, there's an experience for Maldives, and and so on. I wanted to see understand from your lens, what is the system design for that look like? Like, is that kind of templatized, to some extent, to have consistency? Like, for example, is there a canvas and in that canvas you basically paint whatever you want. I wanted to understand what goes behind some of this, like how do you achieve that consistency?
Yeah. I've just realized.
And allow for creativity.
Yeah, I have realized I have gone longish on my answers, but I'll try to keep this one short. We have a system, a classic design system, templatized, reusable, very engineering friendly, very optimized for reuse, very optimized for performance. So the only additional thing that I would mention is to understand that we did not wear and it has got its upsides and downsides. I'll also mention that.
Sure.
One thing that you could have done is you could wear a lens of what are you building and what is the best solution for that. Right? So which is like, what is the best way to build a kitchen?
Right.
What is the best way to build a drawing room?
Right.
What is the best way to build a bedroom? What is the best way to build a study?
Got it.
Each one of them have different purposes.
Right.
And the ethos are different. Right? And you could be very efficient in building them with that narrow vantage.
Got it.
And I think you'll build a stellar kitchen. You'll build a stellar drawing room. But many a time what happens is, when you come to that house, it will look dissonant.
Right.
Because you have naturally lost the purpose of where did you put all these together.
Right.
There has to be a sense of a house.
Yeah.
And when it is in the house, it has to make sense.
Right.
So the challenge at CRED has been that sometimes doing the best whatever will look very dissonant for that house.
Right.
As in, you can't put a refrigerator in the drawing room because most of the time you're in the drawing room.
Right.
See, that's the same argument of usability. Just because I watch TV 8 hours a day and it is becoming very painful for me to go to the other room to fetch my beer, does that mean you'll move the fridge to the drawing room?
Yeah.
You shouldn't. So that usability issue is by design.
Right.
Because it has to make sense for the house. So the way we design for CRED is like, some of the design choices that we make, which are probably not directly in common sense, we can't do them because we are actually building CRED.
Right.
And CRED is a club, and the club has a game room, it has a boardroom, it has a bar, it has a play area, and each one of them have. So I can't suddenly build each one of them with that compartmentalized view, right? So the system has to lend itself to the belief that it has to eventually sit in the realm that we call the CRED app.
Right.
And because of that, there are some categorical compromises. I'm using the word compromises because they're compromises with the larger interest of the home.
Right.
Right, like, so in the Indian context, people say Vastu. Vastu is a massive compromise.
Right.
I mean, you would have ideally thought the gate would have been much nicer if it is this side, but it has to be north facing.
Right.
So you'll artificially change the plan of the house to be north facing.
Right.
So we have some of these things that you create are largely to make sure that CRED is a good place to hang out.
Right.
With intent and without intent.
Right.
Like, if I built entirely for intent, the
Right.
biggest problem is like once the intent is over, it's very hard to keep people.
Right.
So both I and Kunal use this analogy a lot, which is, if you put the children's play area of a mall on its ground floor, the mall will have no business. It is always put on the top floor.
Interesting.
It has to be put on the top floor. Is it great usability? No, it's not. You have to
Right.
climb all the way up and go there. And if you have observed, the food court is right next to the play area.
Right.
That's because the children will play, they get hungry, they'll ask for something. And that's how you build cross-sell models.
Right.
You don't think usability like what is best for the customer. If I put it all on the ground floor, it is very easy to access. You don't run a business like that.
Right.
Like, if you asked a very socialistic question like, did I keep my customer's interest in every single move? No, you have to marry that with what exactly are you trying to do. You are creating a mall.
Yeah.
You need to optimize for people walking, people seeing, window shopping, eating, watching movies. Does it ever make sense to put a movie theater in a mall?
Yeah.
It doesn't, because many people just come to watch the movies, might end up buying something.
Right.
So the principle of design systems in CRED is that upsell, cross-sell is at the heart of everything that we do.
Right.
You need to be able to cross-sell.
Right.
Which is how the design system is built. So,
Interesting.
which unfortunately comes at sometimes at a cost of being
Not
most. I mean, look, user-friendly is a very abused term. Let me
Sure.
come to that. It is not perfect to common sense.
Makes sense.
See, user-friendly. Why did I say that? What is user-friendly? User-friendly is there is something, you know how to use it.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
So, a lot of people forget the fact that most of the things that you get, you don't know how to use it the first time.
Yeah.
You learn.
Yeah.
Something's easy to learn, something's hard to learn.
Yeah.
Eventually, what you learn is already user-friendly.
Yeah.
What is not user-friendly is you tried and you still can't learn.
Yeah.
That is when it is unfriendly, which is what I tell to a lot of people. Oh, the first time I saw it, I didn't understand it. Like, it is not very easy to play PUBG.
Yeah.
But does that mean PUBG is not a good game?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, just because PUBG is hard to learn, you're not playing Road Rash, right?
Yeah.
So some good things will require learning curve, and for me, learning curve is not a bad thing.
That's actually
Like you should actually put a learning curve if it makes your life better. Like I am not here to simplify stuff.
Yeah.
Like is an airplane very simple to fly?
Yeah.
It takes some time, and it takes pilot license to actually fly it. But is flying a plane a non-user friendly thingy? Then we'll all be dying every day.
Yeah.
Like the planes are fairly user friendly once you learn how to use them. That's why a pilot is able to fly it. So I don't generally subscribe to the notion that simplify everything to such level of stupidity that then it is user friendly. Some things are not naturally user friendly. An escalator is not very user friendly. Would you agree? Your mom will still struggle.
Yeah, 100%.
Getting onto it. It takes some learning.
Yeah.
Would you then stop building escalators?
Yeah.
No, you don't. And would you change? I mean, of course, the slanting escalator you see in Phoenix Market City is a great innovation.
Yeah.
Correct. So that people can just walk in. It's accessible. You can drive a cart into it. That's the thing.
Makes sense. Harish, I can keep going on, and there's so much to unpack. I'm going to give the chance to audience to ask a few questions. Can we take a few questions from here? We have 5 minutes to do questions. I have some questions which have come from people which from online. Okay, I'm going to quickly bring them up and see what people are asking you.
Sure. How long do I have to answer them?
Probably 2 minutes each. We'll do it like.
Sure.
Okay. There's a question from Jay. What's the best way for product design teams to get feedback, especially to understand needs of consumers? He's very carefully also used the word humans, people at scale.
Quantitative data, instrumentation. That's my primary and most important answer. Instrument everything. Instrument anything that the human, the user that is using it, your product, instrument everything. And quantitative insights will tell you how the person is engaging with it. And once you clearly identify patterns, try to qualify that by speaking to them, by looking at like group behavior. Sometimes you don't have to call people, you can see group behavior. 40-plus-year-old people are skipping something. Just giving an example.
Right.
Or somebody from a particular region of India are reading this wrongly.
Right.
Or somebody from, let's say, a certain young cohort are leaving the screen very quickly. So just take group insights and then further qualify that as to, okay, it's largely working for everybody excepting people above 40.
Right.
So maybe a lot of people have long sight. I'm just giving you an example.
Fair enough.
Or maybe a lot of people probably have differently able eyesight. Use quantitative signals to qualify. And of course, use your regular mechanisms, right? Like user research is very important, user calling is important, running surveys is important. So goes without saying. But what is important is use quantitative insights and qualify them, and try to not assume everything, believe nothing.
Right.
It is something that I keep doing. Like you can make 100 assumptions, but don't believe your assumptions.
I just want to add to what Harish was saying. One of the things that fascinated me once was, I think there was you guys did something around newsletters or stories sometime, and and I think one of my friend had unsubscribed. He was super surprised to get a call from someone, I think it was in product team or from design team, saying, so why did you unsubscribe?
Sure.
I'm curious to know.
No, it's very important.
So there are just so many such small things that one can do.
And speaking to your users continuously.
Yeah.
Continuously, just keep engaging with them. And use the right research mechanisms. And I think you're really talented researchers in this country, and people doing some stellar work around research. Use their, I want to say this, a lot of people do research, but you don't take them seriously.
Right.
One advice I have is, if you're engaging researchers, when they come back with their data, treat the data with respect, that you apply the insights in. Like research should not be one of those CSR type thingy that you do. Okay, I've done some research, but anyway, I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
Right.
So I see that happening a lot of times. So don't do that.
Makes sense. There's a question from Hari. Is it true that design colleges look for a large range in the work a student can do? If it's true, would learning how to code and learn modeling software to expand my range, or should I only focus on? I think it's a question for what would you tell a designer in college, given that there's so much design also being bundled with or becoming close with technology. What's your advice?
I'm going to say something very. It will land rather unpopularly.
Sure.
But I think it needs to be said. Much like anything that you do in life.
Right.
Playing cricket, Bharatanatyam, programming in Java, singing, painting, designing. These are things that naturally require some flair.
Right.
And you needn't have it.
Right.
Let me start by saying that you needn't have it.
Right.
When you don't have it, my advice is to find something which you have flair for.
Right.
My biggest problem with design education is trying to now peddle design to people who don't have flair for it by removing things that are hard to learn.
Interesting.
Like a lot of design schools actually will teach you how to do personas because it doesn't require any special skills.
Right.
They will teach you how to ask questions. Can you really design? A person that can't actually think in colors, in proportions, in typography, in kerning, in general proportions, you can't be a good designer. Like this whole construction that is just a small facet of design called visualization. No, that's almost like saying I can talk about ragas, I can identify ragas, I can actually go for concerts.
But I can't sing.
Can you sing? You can't sing, it is fine, but don't appropriate yourself as a singer.
Right.
Like a music critic and a musician are two different people.
Right.
Does a music critic need to exist? 100%. Is his contributions valuable? 100%. Should they? But are you a musician? Sorry, you're not. So in design, my short answer is, ask yourself, are you an artsy person? Are you able to understand how to create layouts?
Right.
See, because eventually what your customer uses the layout that you're creating, the button that you're creating, the movement from screen to screen. Can you think, just because you can draw flowcharts, you're not a designer, because majority design schools are teaching how to draw flowcharts.
Right.
Flowcharting is important. Wireframing, paper prototyping, napkin prototyping. I don't even know what the hell that is. Why would you draw on a napkin? Don't do that. There are softwares available. So
just to add to this thing, obviously in the last few months we've been super this thing about AI and all the design tools that's coming out of AI and so on. Do you think this thing about flair can be complemented by AI, or is there a thing that, or do you see this more as like for people who have flair that they can become 5x, 10x better? Like what's
complemented? Yes. Replaced? No.
Okay.
So Nikhil, we both can talk. You're a musician. I'm a musician. Has software-based DAWs, the Logics and Pro Tools of the world, has it made music production better?
Yeah.
Yes. But has it replaced musicians?
Yeah.
No. So most of the times what AI can provide for is convert an aspiration which is programmatically repeatable,
right.
which is kind of more iterative, more classically loopy, something which is not worthy of human effort.
Right.
Like, is human effort worthy of doing something that can be programmatically automated? That I'm sure AI will replace.
Right.
And a lot of this current designing for login form, designing for sign up form, designing for contact screen, AI should bloody replace that.
Right.
What is a designer doing building this?
Right.
Like, creating validations. Where will the validation message come?
Like
edge cases. What are designers building edge cases for?
Yeah.
AI should replace it.
Right.
And designers should use their time to actually create something that AI can't create.
Right.
And I think there's ample opportunity to do that.
Amazing. Now, thank you so much, Harish. It's been such a pleasure. We can't obviously let you go without getting Harish to sing for us. As I promised all of you who was watching, Harish is also the founder and the frontman and lead vocalist for Ragam. So we'll do a very small jam right now, and Harish would love to hear.
No, sure,
It's also such a great, a very happy moment for me that I'm getting to do this with you. So we'll quickly set this up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. 2 minutes.
Go, Nikhil. மேகம் திறந்து கொண்டு மண்ணில் இறங்கி வந்து மார்பில் ஒளிந்து கொள்ள பாவா, மார்பில் ஒளிந்து கொண்டால் மாறன் நம்பு வரும், கூந்தலில் ஒளிந்து கொள்ள வரவா, என் கூந்தல் தேவன் தூங்கும் பள்ளி அறையா, மலர் சூடும் வயதில் என்னை மறந்து போவதுதான் முறையா, நினைக்காத நேரம் இல்லை காதல் ரதியே ரதியே, உன் பேரை சொன்னால் போதும் நின்று வழிவிடும் காதல் நதியே, மறக்காது என் ராகம் மறிக்காது என் தேகம், 5-6 நூற்றாண்டு வாழ்வோம் என் வாழ்வேவா. மலர்களே மலர்களே இது என்ன கனவா, மலைகளே மலைகளே இது என்ன நினைவா, உருகியதே எனது உள்ளம், பெருகியதே விண்ணோடும் நீதான் மண்ணோடும் நீதான் கண்ணோடும் நீதான், மலர்களே மலர்களே. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Harish, one solo? Any song you want. I'll just hold the root note.
I didn't think about it. Okay. Oh, just give
D.
Just give D. Thanks. It's a song by my band. When somebody asked that, thank you. Very kind of you.
Big fan.
Thank you. मनव्यालकिं चरातडे, मनव्यालकिं चरातडे, मनव्यालकिं चरातडे, मर्ममिल्लदिल पेदने मनसा मनव्यालकिं चरातडे, மமில்லதில் பேதனே மனசாமன வியாலக்கின் சரா தடே
Thank you so
Cheers,
much.
man. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody who's joined today. Thank you so much for joining us on the 4th episode. Harish, it was such a
Cheers, man.
pleasure. Thank you so much for doing
Thank
this.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers.